On a darkened night, anxious by love inflamed, oh happy chance. Unnoticed, I took flight, my house at last, at peace and quiet. Safe, disguised by the night, by the secret ladder, I took flight. Oh happy chance, cloaked by darkness, I scaled the height, my house at last, at peace and quiet. On that blessed night, in secret and seen by none, none in sight, I saw with no other guide or light but the one burning in my heart bright. This guide, this light, brighter than the midday sun, led me to the waiting one I knew so well, my delight, to a place with none in sight. O night, O guide, O night more loving than the dawn, O night that joined the lover with the beloved, transformed the lover into the beloved drawn. Upon my flowered breast, for him alone kept fair, there he slept, there I caressed, there the cedars gave us air. I drank the turret's cool air, spreading playfully his hair, and his hand so serene cut my throat. Drained of senses, I dropped unaware, lost to myself and yet remaining, inclined so only the beloved I spy. All has ceased, all rests, even my cares, even I, lost among the lilies, there I die. Every journey has its challenges. Every journey has its moments where it makes you break down and reach rock bottom. And the spiritual journey is no different. This is one of the biggest themes from The Dark Night of the Soul, which remains one of the most popular mystical and spiritual poems of all time. What I love about this poem is how relatable it is to all of our spiritual journeys. In fact, the term Dark Night of the Soul is such a well-known phrase in our society today that it extends far beyond its original spiritual and mystical context. You can find writers, poets, and artists using the metaphor of the dark night to express periods of struggle, existential crisis, or personal transformation. Psychologists and self-help authors also use it to describe periods of deep introspection personal crisis, or emotional hardship. Even seekers outside of traditional Christianity have used the phrase to describe stages of their spiritual awakening, inner purification, and quest for life's deeper meaning. But while the term can aptly describe these situations and experiences, the dark night of the soul is more than just a period of purification and transformation. Most importantly, it expresses the ultimate goal of uniting with God. Indeed, life's challenges and tribulations are necessary to purify our soul of all its attachments, desires, and imperfections. And when the soul is freed from these cages and anchors, it can finally rise and reunite with God. This is the ultimate takeaway from this poem, and we will now spend some time going over some of its main themes, starting with the metaphorical dark night that is necessary for spiritual purification. In today's day and age, the word dark or darkness carries a lot of negative connotations. People use it to describe something that is scary, undesirable, or even painful. It's never really used in the way John of the Cross uses it, which is as a prelude to something better. In fact, you've probably heard of the expression, "The night is always darkest before the dawn." Well, the dawn here is the hopeful or promising moment we are all waiting for. And the dark night is the terrible and difficult period that we have to get through first. But rather than trying to rush through the dark night, what if we use it as a vehicle for experiencing the dawn? In other words, what if the darkness is necessary for the light of God to appear? This is what John of the Cross is alluding to. You can see this with some of the language he uses, like disguised by night, cloaked by darkness, and O night more loving than dawn. These are all different ways to describe how beautiful the dark night can actually be if we take the time to realize it. For example, if we experience some sort of a pain or heartbreak, it is actually creating space in our heart to experience a deeper kind of love. Not necessarily the love for another person, although that can be beautiful as well, but rather the love for God. In fact, many spiritual seekers were once romantic seekers, who after realizing that humanly love was not enough, began their pursuit of God. This is an example of how what seems to be a dark night, in this case a heartbreak, can actually lead us to a new dawn. Or what about when we lose a pet or a loved one? Grief can be a devastating pain that can last a long time, but in that loss there can also be a gain. Forests that are burned down by wildfires create room for new trees to grow. So regardless of the challenge or crisis, the dark night of our lives has a special and meaningful place within our spiritual journey. This is true even when the challenge is spiritual in nature, which is more aligned with the message of the poem. Even though John of the Cross experienced many challenges throughout his life, from losing his father at a young age to being imprisoned, perhaps no challenge was greater than experiencing a state of spiritual obscurity, where one feels abandoned by God. We all experience these feelings at some point or another, giving us a sense that there is a spiritual emptiness inside. But again, that emptiness is only a prelude to a deeper, more profound relationship with God. Before God approaches you, He wants to test you by purifying you. Even though God is accessible by all, not everyone is willing to reach the divine. The vast majority of us, when faced with a dark night, bicker and complain that life is not fair, and question why God would put us through such a difficult ordeal. But the individual that has some level of awareness notices that there is a purpose to the chaos, and slowly surrenders to the transformation that is taking place. This is the start of awakening, and the start of becoming united with God. And it all starts with the act of purifying oneself, purifying until there is nothing left but God. When we talk about purification, we are referring to detaching ourselves from the comforts and pleasures of the material world. This doesn't necessarily mean leaving everything behind to become a monk or nun, although for some people that is the answer. But for the rest of us, purification can mean something as simple as not giving in to our cravings all the time. For example, if you're always eating candy and ice cream every single day, you are attached to the pleasure these foods bring. And although it may not initially seem that this habit is taking you away from God, if we look at it deeply, when you consume so much sugar and processed foods, you become tired and lazy, and therefore unwilling to be present and to do activities that can help you connect with God. In fact, you become so tired and lazy that you have no energy to become aware of your thoughts, to meditate, pray, or do anything productive. And a lot of the times this laziness then leads to eating more sweets, and you soon become entrenched in a vicious cycle. This is a pretty simple example, but there are of course thousands of different ways that we are attached to this world. Whether that's being a hopeless romantic, striving for wealth and success, or even trying to become enlightened, which can actually lead to attachment if we are not aware. All of these things pull our soul further away from God and make it harder for us to actually reach Him. Therefore, to purify ourselves means to reverse all these thoughts, habits, and activities to cleanse the soul of all attachments. This is what John of the Cross means when he says, "My house at last at peace and quiet." He's not referring to an actual house. Rather, he's referring to his mind and body. His mind and body are the house. And because he has dedicated so much time and energy to purifying himself, his mind and body are no longer tempted by desires, attachments, and infatuations. Instead, they are quiet and at peace. The mind is quiet and at peace. And it is through this purified state that he is able to climb the secret ladder or the pathway to God. No one can see him while he completes his union, and he can see no one, because he is no longer identified with his passions, cravings, or even his thoughts. He has transcended the sense of self that so many of us identify with, which is the ego or false self. And this is where the peace and joy of life can truly be found. Not in some sprawling mansion or some fancy car. Not in endless degrees, praise, or accolades. Not even in people or companions. But solely in the presence and company of God. This is the state of true ecstasy. Now, when we talk about union with God, Most of us might think about the Sufi poets and mystics who wrote extensively about this topic. But there is actually a great literature from the Christian mystics that describes so eloquently and passionately this mystical state. This just goes to show that uniting with God isn't limited to a specific religion, belief, or way of life. Rather, it has to do with each individual soul and how willing one is to go through the hours of their dark night in order to come out on the other side. Like the Sufi and Christian mystics before him, John of the Cross vividly describes his union with God, using phrases like playing with God's hair, caressing the divine, and embracing his hand. Since it is so hard for us to even imagine God's presence, John of the Cross makes it easy on us by portraying God as a person, but this is of course only the tip of the iceberg. God is far greater than any word or thought we can come up with, making this union even more special. This is not two lovers being passionate with one another to the point of attachment, only to learn that they will one day be separated by death. No, this is a soul reuniting with its Creator, connecting so deeply with the divine that there is not even a person or sense of self anymore. In fact, you see this at the end of the poem, where John of the Cross writes, "All has ceased and all rests, even my cares, even I. Lost among the lilies, there I die." The death here is not the physical death of the body, but the death of the false self. The death of all attachments and desires that have prevented the union. This is the death we should all strive for while we can, because we never know if we will ever get this chance later on in life. With all the signs that life throws out at us, with all the challenges and difficulties, we have a real opportunity to make this shift now and experience what John of the Cross experienced. This state is not just something a few souls can experience. We can all experience this peaceful and joyful state if we can learn and grow from our dark night. And I would be remiss if I did not mention an important aspect of reaching this union, which is cultivating an intense love for God. This isn't an ordinary kind of love. It inflames and brightens the heart. It burns deep in our soul, and it lights the path to the beloved. These aren't just poetic words John of the Cross is using. They convey actual reality. When you love God more than you love your own body, that is when you start to approach Him and transcend your dark night. Without this deep and special love for God, no progress is possible. In fact, you are bound to remain oblivious and unaware, repeating the same destructive habits and thought patterns that keep you shackled. It is only when we cultivate the epitome of love that we are transformed and into the beloved drawn. There is obviously a lot more that we can explore in this poem, but I hope you have gained not only an appreciation of its poetic beauty, but also its profound truth. As I mentioned, we all go through a dark night or period in our life. But contrary to popular perception, this dark night is an essential step on our journey toward union with God. Every single soul must be purified before it can enter the kingdom of God. And while purification may sound like a lot of work and sacrifice, believe me when I say that it is all worth it. Because once we come out on the other side, we realize what life is truly about. We realize what will bring us true peace and happiness. And we realize why life is not the same when God is not at the center of it. So I hope you enjoyed this poem and interpretation. If you like this video and want more content like this, then please make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell to stay up to date on all the newest videos. Also, please take a moment to drop a like and share your thoughts. It will really help others both discover the content in the first place, but also get the feeling that they are not alone on this journey. Even though divine union is an intimately personal journey that no one can travel but ourselves, there is so much we can learn from one another that can help us grow and purify even further. Make your voices heard and let others know why this journey is so special. But for now, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you soon on the next video.